Now what you're seeing here is chronology, time moving forward as we go rightward, and floating point operations per second in this vertical axis. 1 teraflop is a trillion floating point operations per second. A petaflop is 1 quadrillion, or 10 to the 15th power. An exaflop is 1 quintillion, or 10 to the 18th power. Now, of these three lines, the middle line is the least interesting of the three. That is merely the computational power of the most powerful supercomputer of the top 500. This blue line is of some interest because that is the cutoff of the top 500, the number 500 ranked supercomputer of the top 500. Now, no supercomputer aspires to be exactly number 500 in rank. They don't know if they're going to be number 499 or 501 and therefore off the list. They just don't know that. But this measurement is informative in telling us where the cutoff is of the 500 list, which then feeds into the most important line, which is the green line, the sum of all of the top 500 supercomputers, and gives us an assessment of computational progress to date, because this combines supercomputers across multiple organizations and multiple countries. It is a more decentralized assessment of technological progress, including energy consumption constraints. However, what is interesting in looking at these lines is how the number 500 supercomputer power is flatlining, while the number 1 is not, and therefore the gap between number 1 and number 500 is widening a great deal. This tells us that for the first time, all these on-demand computational subscription services, such as available through Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc., where you rent a supercomputer for exactly the time that you need it and you don't have to have any supercomputer on premise, is eating into what was traditionally tracked in this top 500 list. And it's not merely the bottommost supercomputer of the 500 that is being displaced by these subscription services, but many of the lower supercomputers. And that's why this list comes into question, because multiple lower ranked supercomputers are being displaced by these subscription services, and the question becomes, does this grand total account for all that? Maybe top500.org is no longer an accurate representation of high-powered computing, because if this is the case, and therefore there isn't even room for 500 supercomputers anymore, which is why you are getting this flatlining in the blue line, but not in this green line, then that represents a very substantial shift in supercomputing as a whole, because you now have on-demand supercomputing. A smaller organization can rent a supercomputer for even just 1 hour if that is what they need it for. That is very cost effective. It might be as little as $900 or $1,000 to rent the supercomputing power that you need for a short while, and it's very efficient. And this being on demand, decentralized, and dematerialized means that high performance computing is getting to be more analogous to other forms of on-demand services such as Netflix or Uber from a consumer perspective. And the question becomes, how far does it go? Do all supercomputers, other than the top secret ones used by the most classified government institutions, get replaced by on-demand high-performance computing? And does the high-performance computing model scale down all the way to the consumer? It may get to the point where you don't even have a PC in your home. You just subscribe to a service that might be $10 a month, and you have computing power that rises or falls based on your application at a given time. Coming back to supercomputing, we can see this shift occurring, which leads me to think that maybe computational power is not saturating as much as this graph depicts. In prior versions of this video, I have spoken about this flatlining as indicative of both technological and economic underperformance relative to the trend line. But if this green line is not capturing the full extent of this on-demand subscription type high-performance computing use, then perhaps things are not as far behind the trend line as we think. So maybe we have to find another measurement source. Until that time, we will continue to use top500.org as a source because it's the best that we know of so far.